Have you ever felt an energy within you, something silent, powerful, ancient, something that moves even when you are still, that pulse in your chest, that spark in your eyes? What if it's not yours at all? What if the energy you call life is actually the energy of Allah Himself, flowing through you, breathing through you, living through you? Centuries ago, the great Sufi master Ibn Arabi revealed a secret so profound, it shook the foundations of ordinary faith. The truth that you are not just a creation of Allah, you are a reflection of His energy. The same divine current that turns galaxies beats inside your heart. But the world has made you forget. It has made you believe you are small, separate, powerless. Today we return to that forgotten truth, the one Ibn Arabi whispered through his words, lived through his silence, and carried in the depth of his heart. So listen carefully, because this is not just a story about Sufism. This is a journey back to your origin, back to the divine energy that is you. You are not just flesh and bone. You are not merely a name, a face, or a story made of time. Within you burns something timeless, a spark from the eternal flame. Ibn Arabi once said, "The universe is alive through the breath of Allah." Every pulse of your heart, every spark of thought, every silent longing within your soul, it is all a ripple from that divine breath. You were never truly separate. You were never abandoned. You are part of an ongoing act of divine expression. The same force that sets the stars in motion, that paints the sky with dawn and whispers to the oceans. That same force breathes through you. When you speak, it listens. When you move, it flows. This is not a metaphor. It is the reality of your being. The moment you realize that your energy, your very existence, is not self-contained, but a current from the infinite, your world changes. You stop seeing yourself as small. You stop calling yourself broken. You begin to understand that what lives inside you is not weakness, but divine power waiting to be remembered. When you feel lost, empty, or unseen, it is not because Allah has turned away. It is because you've turned away from the mirror within. Ibn Arabi and the Sufis taught that the soul is a mirror polished by remembrance. Over time, the mirror gathers dust, the dust of fear, doubt, ego, and forgetfulness. The light of Allah still shines upon it, but we no longer see the reflection. Yet the beauty of this truth is that the mirror can always be cleaned. Through dhikr, through silence, through awareness, the dust begins to fade, and the divine image reappears. That is why the Sufis say, the lover's first step is to remember. Remember what you are. Remember who is breathing within you. The emptiness you feel is not absence. It's a sacred call, an invitation to rediscover your origin. The energy of Allah never leaves. It only waits beneath the noise of the world, whispering, "Return to me, for I have always been inside you." Once you hear that whisper, even your silence becomes sacred. Ibn Arabi spoke of al-Dhikr, al-Haqq, the true remembrance, the awakening of the soul beyond words. It is not the mere repetition of Allah's name on the tongue. It is when His name vibrates through your entire being. When you breathe Him. When you move in His rhythm. It is the moment when your inner world aligns with the divine current flowing through existence. The heart becomes a drum beating with Allah's name, and the soul dances to the music of eternity. This is the state where you stop searching for proof of God, because you feel Him pulsing inside your veins. Ibn Arabi taught that this is not belief. It is knowing. To live in this awareness is to walk as light clothed in human form. The mind quiets, the ego melts, and what remains is pure energy, the divine energy, limitless and eternal, expressing itself through you. When that remembrance awakens, your heart no longer seeks miracles, it becomes one. From the moment we open our eyes to this world, we are taught to search outward for love, for peace, for validation. We chase people, possessions, and fleeting moments of joy, thinking they will complete us. But Ibn Arabi whispers through the centuries, what you seek is already seeking you. His words are not poetry. They are a reminder that the treasure you've been searching for lies buried within your own heart. Every human being carries an ocean of divine energy, but most stand at its shore, thirsty and unaware of the water beneath their feet. The world teaches us to fill the emptiness with noise, but the soul craves silence, for in silence, the divine speaks. When you turn inward, you begin to sense it, a subtle vibration, a current of peace beneath the chaos of thought. That is the energy of Allah moving through you. It doesn't come from outside. It awakens when you remember your source. This awakening is not sudden. It unfolds like dawn. At first, faint light touches the horizon of your being. Then slowly the darkness begins to fade. You start noticing beauty in places you ignored, gratitude in moments you once overlooked, and presence in breaths you never counted. Ibn Arabi called this realization the unveiling, when the veil between you and Allah begins to lift, not because He moves closer, but because you finally open your eyes. The truth is, you are not a seeker traveling toward God. You are the awareness through which God is revealing Himself. You were never outside the circle. You were the circle itself, spinning in divine rhythm, waiting to wake up to the truth that Allah has always been within you, not beyond you. Understanding this truth requires humility, the kind that shatters the illusion of separateness. Ibn Arabi's teachings were never meant to make a man feel divine in ego. They were meant to dissolve the ego in the divine. He never said you are Allah. He said you exist through Allah. Just as a drop of water exists because the ocean exists, you exist because the divine energy flows through you. The drop is not the ocean, yet the ocean's essence is fully within it. When the drop realizes its origin, it no longer fears merging back into the vastness. It understands that returning is not loss, it is completion. This is what Ibn Arabi meant by ma'rifah, true knowledge. It's not memorized wisdom, but recognition born from surrender. The drop doesn't boast about the ocean's power. It simply allows itself to be carried by it. The ego, however, resists this current. It clings to identity, to control, to pride. But the Sufi path teaches, you cannot hold the hand of Allah while holding on to yourself. When you release the illusion of mine, me, and I, a profound peace enters your being, because what remains is Him. Then every breath becomes an act of worship, every heartbeat an echo of the divine pulse. To see yourself as a drop of that eternal ocean is not to diminish your worth. It is to understand your infinite value, for the ocean lives through every drop, and every drop reflects the whole. Ibn Arabi called this the secret of unity. When you realize that nothing separates you from Allah, except the idea that you are separate, and when that illusion dissolves, the entire universe becomes your prayer mat, and every moment becomes an encounter with the divine. The Sufis say that the human heart is not just a place of emotion. It is the throne of divine revelation. It is where heaven and earth meet, where the visible world touches the unseen. Ibn Arabi described the heart as a vast kingdom with two doors. One door opens to the world, to noise, to desire, to everything that distracts you from who you truly are. The other door opens to the divine, to silence, to truth, to the energy of Allah that breathes through every atom of existence. Most people live their entire lives standing at the first door, facing the world, believing that what they see is all that exists. They knock endlessly, asking the world for meaning, for validation, for peace. Yet the world, by its nature, cannot give them what it does not possess. The world is a shadow. It reflects light, but it does not create it. And so the heart grows restless, thirsty, and tired, yearning for something it cannot name. But there are moments, rare, sacred moments, when the noise fades, and a silence begins to hum beneath the surface of your being. In that silence, you hear something ancient and familiar, a soft whisper saying, "Turn around." It is your soul calling you to the other door, the one that opens to Allah. That door does not exist in time or space. It exists in awareness. It opens not through effort, but through surrender. When you turn inward, you realize that you were never locked out of divine presence. You simply never faced it. The door to Allah was always open. Your attention was simply elsewhere. The moment you turn toward it with sincerity, something shifts inside you, not dramatically at first, but subtly, like dawn creeping over a dark horizon. You begin to feel light inside your chest, not metaphorical light, but an actual vibration, a warmth, a living energy that has always been there, waiting for you to notice it. Ibn Arabi said that the heart is capable of reflecting every divine name: mercy, wisdom, majesty, love, and truth. But to reflect them, the heart must be polished, and it is polished through remembrance, through dhikr, through patience, through surrender. Every time you remember Allah, every time you forgive, every time you choose humility over pride, the mirror of the heart clears a little more. At first, you may feel nothing, only emptiness. But that emptiness is not a void. It is a space being made for the divine to enter. Slowly, the dust of the world fades, and the reflection grows brighter. The more you open that second door, the more your life begins to change, not from the outside, but from within. You start noticing the presence of Allah in everything, in the way the wind moves, in the smile of a stranger, in the silence between words. You begin to realize that you were never alone. You were surrounded, carried by His energy all along. And then something even more profound happens. The heart, once divided between two worlds, becomes one. The door that faced the world and the door that faced the divine begin to merge, because you no longer see two realities. You see only one. The light of Allah floods through both doors, illuminating everything. The mundane becomes sacred. The ordinary becomes miraculous. Even pain becomes a form of guidance, because you understand that everything, every joy, every loss, every breath is part of the same divine symphony. This is what Ibn Arabi meant when he said, "The heart is a mirror of all realities." When the second door opens, the entire universe becomes a reflection of Allah's attributes, and you begin to walk not as a seeker, but as a reflection of the one you were seeking. But this awakening is not a single event. It is a lifelong unveiling. There will still be moments when the first door tempts you again, when the noise of the world grows loud, when the ego whispers, when fear clouds your vision. Yet, once the second door has opened, you can never completely forget the light. It stays with you, guiding you back every time you wander. You learn to move through the world without belonging to it, to work, to love, to live, but not to be imprisoned by any of it. You become like a candle in a dark room, part of the world, yet shining from a source beyond it. This is the secret of the heart that Ibn Arabi revealed. The divine does not live in distant skies. He lives within the sanctuary of your own heart. The world outside may change, fade, or crumble, but the energy of Allah inside you is eternal. Once you open that sacred door, there is no turning back, because you finally understand that the journey you've been walking all along was never leading to Him. It was leading you back to yourself, where He has always been, waiting in silence, whispering, "I am nearer to you than your own heartbeat." There comes a moment in the seeker's path when the walls between me and the world begin to dissolve. At first, it is frightening, because you have built your whole identity around separation. You and others, you and Allah, you and destiny. But Ibn Arabi revealed a truth that shatters all illusions. Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being. It is the realization that nothing truly exists except Allah, and everything else is a reflection of His eternal light. The sun does not vanish when a drop of water sparkles in its glow. It only reveals itself through that drop. In the same way, creation is not separate from the Creator. It is His beauty made visible, His breath given form, His energy vibrating through time. You are not standing before Allah. You are standing within Him. You are not a creature far from the divine. You are the space in which the divine reveals Himself. Every moment, every sound, every heartbeat is an act of divine self-expression, and you are part of that expression. Ibn Arabi said that the true knower sees Allah in everything, in the blooming of a flower, in the cry of a child, in the silence of the desert, and even in the pain that carves the heart. For to see Allah only in comfort is to limit His presence. The unity of being means recognizing that the same divine energy that gives life to the stars also flows through your veins. There is no place where Allah is not. To the ordinary mind, this sounds impossible, but to the awakened heart, it is undeniable. When the veil of ego lifts, when the dust of illusion settles, the whole universe becomes a mirror reflecting one truth. La ilaha illallah, there is no reality, but the divine reality. It is not a concept to be memorized. It is an experience that consumes you, transforms you, and births you anew. Once this truth dawns upon you, you no longer live as yourself. You live through Him, as His energy, His light, His voice moving through the world. But this realization is not comfortable. It breaks you before it completes you. The ego screams, "I am something," while the truth whispers, "You are nothing but me." And in that sacred breaking, something eternal is revealed. The Sufis call it fana, the annihilation of the self, the moment when the drop falls into the ocean and realizes it was never separate to begin with. Yet Ibn Arabi went further. He spoke of baka, the return to the world, after the realization, when you continue to live among people, but as a vessel of divine awareness. You smile, you work, you love, but everything you do flows from that endless well of divine energy inside you. You no longer see people as enemies or strangers. You see them as reflections of the same light, each carrying a fragment of the infinite whole. Hatred loses its meaning. Judgment loses its grip. You begin to live in harmony with everything, because you see everything as an expression of Allah's will. When this awareness enters the heart, life transforms completely. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start whispering, "It is you." You no longer fear loss, because nothing is truly lost. Everything simply returns to its source. You no longer chase happiness, because happiness becomes the natural fragrance of existence itself. Ibn Arabi said, "He who knows himself knows his Lord." The more you look inward, the more you see the divine reflected in your own depths. The eyes of the seeker change. They no longer see beauty and ugliness, gain and loss, success and failure. They see only patterns of the same divine energy expressing itself through contrast. Light and shadow are not enemies. They are partners in revealing the fullness of the truth. Just as day cannot exist without night, the heart cannot awaken without the veil of forgetfulness. This is the paradox Ibn Arabi understood, that even illusion has its place in the dance of the real. The unity of being does not erase individuality, it sanctifies it. You are still you, but a different you. You become like a wave that knows it is the ocean. You move, you rise, you fall, but your essence never leaves the sea. That is freedom, not to escape the world, but to see Allah in every corner of it. Every moment becomes worship. Every breath becomes remembrance. You find Allah not only in mosques and prayers, but in laughter, in tears, in the rhythm of your own heartbeat. And when the world looks at you, they sense something, a quiet presence, a light that doesn't speak but transforms. That is the mark of the one who has glimpsed unity. Ibn Arabi called such a person the perfect human, al-insan al-kamil, the one who reflects all of Allah's attributes without claiming them as his own. He loves without possession, gives without pride, and lives without fear, because he knows that nothing can be taken from what belongs entirely to the One. To live this truth is not to escape the world, but to see it as it truly is, a divine mirror, endlessly revealing the face of the Beloved. The trees are no longer just trees. They are verses. The sky is no longer just sky. It is revelation. Every person becomes a message, every breath a remembrance. You walk through life not seeking signs. You become a sign yourself, a living proof that Allah's energy flows through all. This is Wahdat, al-Wujud, not a doctrine, but an awakening. The moment when separation ends and you realize that everything you touch, see, love, and lose has always been part of one unbroken existence. Allah's existence flowing endlessly within and around you. There comes a moment on the path when words, knowledge, and effort no longer carry you forward. You may have read, prayed, and sought tirelessly, but something within still feels distant, like standing before the ocean and thirsting for a single drop of water. That moment is the invitation to surrender. Ibn Arabi taught that the energy of Allah does not flow through the vessel of pride. It moves through emptiness, through humility, through the one who has bowed so deeply that only Allah remains standing within. He said, "When I became nothing, I saw everything." The ego, however, resists this annihilation. It clings to its story, my success, my failure, my name, my pain. It fears disappearing, not knowing that its disappearance is not death, but birth, the birth of the soul's true light. The Sufi path calls this fana, the dissolving of the false self, not by violence or force, but by love so vast, it melts every boundary that once separated you from the divine. Surrender begins in silence, not the silence of sound, but the silence of the heart that stops demanding and starts listening. In that stillness, you realize how much energy is wasted in resistance, resisting what is, resisting who you are, resisting what Allah has written. But the truth is, every moment has already been crafted by the one who knows you better than you know yourself. Ibn Arabi said, "What you call destiny is the echo of your own soul's longing. So why fight what you have already chosen before you were born?" Surrender is not weakness. It is alignment. It is the moment when your will bends gently to the will of Allah, like a river returning to the sea. The ego shouts, "I must control." The heart whispers, "I trust." And the moment that trust awakens, the divine current begins to carry you effortlessly, as if the universe itself has taken you by the hand. But to reach that state, the old must die. The masks you wear, the identities you build, they must all fall away. The image you protect, the opinions you defend, the fears you hide, these are walls that block the flow of divine energy. Ibn Arabi taught that every human carries two energies, the energy of the ego and the energy of the soul. The ego's energy burns fast. It is restless, noisy, desperate for recognition. The soul's energy is calm, endless, and radiant, like sunlight that never needs applause to shine. As long as you cling to the first, the second remains dormant. But the moment you let go, even for a breath, you feel it, a gentle power rising from within. not from ambition, but from surrender. That is the energy of Allah awakening inside you, moving through your heart, guiding you not toward worldly success, but toward divine presence. True surrender transforms the way you see everything. You stop asking Allah to change your situation and begin asking Him to change your perception. You realize that every difficulty was a lesson wrapped in disguise, a test of faith, not a punishment. The pain that once felt unbearable becomes sacred, because you now understand that it was sent to crack the shell of the ego, so the light could pour in. Ibn Arabi said that the heart is like a lamp covered in layers of glass. Each layer represents your attachments, your fears, your illusions. The more you surrender, the more glass shatters, and the clearer the flame becomes. At first, the breaking hurts, but soon you realize the pain was never destruction. It was purification. Every tear, every loss, every fall was Allah's way of freeing you from what kept you small. What remains is something weightless, a soul unchained, a being that no longer needs to prove anything to the world because it knows it belongs to the infinite. When you reach this point, life becomes simple, yet infinitely profound. You begin to live with open hands, taking nothing, clinging to nothing. You love, but you do not possess. You act, but you do not control the outcome. You trust that whatever comes is a message, and whatever leaves is mercy. Stop measuring life in terms of gain or loss. You begin to see it as a dance between concealment and revelation. Ibn Arabi said that Allah hides Himself in multiplicity so that we may find Him in diversity. Every person you meet, every situation you face becomes a mirror of the divine. You see the beloved behind every veil, and that vision fills you with compassion. Even those who hurt you become teachers, carriers of lessons meant to refine your heart. That is the beauty of surrender. It turns suffering into wisdom and turns the human journey into worship. And then comes the final stage. When surrender becomes joy, you no longer try to trust. Trust becomes your nature. You no longer fight the flow of destiny. You float in it. You begin to understand the secret behind Ibn Arabi's words. The servant's journey ends where it began, in Allah. You realize that surrender is not giving up. It is returning home. When you say, "I am nothing," the light replies, "Then I am everything through you." That is the ultimate paradox of the mystic path. The moment you disappear, you discover that you have never been more alive. The energy that once moved through prophets, saints, and lovers of God begins to move through you. Not because you are special, but because you have finally become transparent enough for the light to pass through. That is the secret Ibn Arabi left for us, that the divine energy within you is not found through striving, but through surrendering completely. And once you surrender, you no longer walk toward Allah. You walk as His light in the world. There comes a stage on the Sufi path when the seeker's heart transforms from a battlefield of desires into a sanctuary of divine presence. Ibn Arabi called this the heart of the perfect human, al-insan al-kamil, a heart so vast that it can hold the entire universe without breaking. He once said, "My heart has become capable of every form. It is a pasture for gazelles, a convent for monks, a temple for idols, and the Kaaba of the pilgrim. I follow the religion of love. Whichever way love's camels turn, their love is my religion and my faith." These words are not poetry alone. They are the essence of his realization. The heart that knows Allah deeply stops belonging to one form, one idea, one limitation. It becomes a mirror of divine unity, Tawheed, reflecting the one through every form of creation. Such a heart no longer judges or divides. It sees the truth hidden behind opposites, the light shining equally through shadow and radiance. It is a heart that has been purified by the fire of surrender, polished by pain, widened by compassion, until it becomes a vessel vast enough for all of existence to dwell within. In the early stages, the seeker's heart is narrow, filled with I and mine. It loves selectively, trusts conditionally, and forgives rarely. It divides people into good and bad, believer and non-believer, friend and foe. But Ibn Arabi's wisdom reveals that as long as the heart divides, it cannot unite with the one who transcends all division. So life begins to train the seeker through betrayal, loss, disappointment, and heartbreak. Each wound cracks open a layer of pride. Each tear washes away another illusion. Slowly, painfully, the heart expands. It learns to love even those who do not love it back. It learns to see beauty in what once seemed ugly. It learns that behind every face, even the harshest, is the breath of Allah moving unseen. This transformation is not easy. It is crucifixion and resurrection. The ego dies screaming, but what rises is the heart of the friend, the one who carries mercy even for those who throw stones. Ibn Arabi taught that love is not a feeling. It is the energy of existence itself. Everything in the cosmos is sustained by divine love. Every atom spins in longing for its source. When the seeker realizes this, they stop searching for love as an emotion and begin to live as love itself. They love the rose and its thorn, the day and its night, the giving and the taking. This is not passivity. It is divine vision. It is to see Allah in every circumstance, to bow to His wisdom even when it wears the mask of difficulty. Such love breaks all walls. The heart that once held only its own reflection now becomes a mirror of the infinite. It can sit with sinners without pride, with saints without envy, with the poor without pity, and with the powerful without fear, because it knows there is no other. Everything is a face of the beloved, turned in different directions. When this realization deepens, even religion itself becomes a garment too small for the vastness of love. Ibn Arabi never denied the Sharia. He lived by it, but he saw beyond it to the ocean it points toward. The forms of faith, he said, are like vessels. They carry water, but the water itself has no form. The lover of Allah drinks from every cup, yet is attached to none. He respects every path that leads to the divine, because he knows the beloved hides in all languages, all traditions, all hearts that yearn sincerely. This does not mean losing one's faith. It means seeing that your faith is part of a much greater symphony. The Prophet ﷺ said, "The most beloved of people to Allah are those most beneficial to His creation." Ibn Arabi lived that truth. His love was so wide it could not exclude anyone. His heart became the Kaaba, not made of stone, but of mercy, a Kaaba that all hearts could walk toward and find peace. This level of consciousness changes how one perceives humanity. The seeker stops seeing people through labels, Muslim, Christian, Jew, believer, disbeliever, and starts seeing souls, each on their unique journey back to the same source. He understands that every soul is like a spark of divine fire, burning through its own darkness to return to the light. Judgment fades, compassion blooms. You begin to weep for the ignorance of others, not because you are better, but because you recognize your own past blindness in them. You realize that every person is Allah in disguise, calling you to love without measure. That is why Ibn Arabi's followers say, "The heart that has known the beloved can no longer hate," because hate becomes impossible once you've seen that there is only one being playing all roles, the oppressor and the oppressed, the lover and the beloved, the seeker and the found. In this state, the heart becomes like a sun, shining on all without discrimination. It does not choose who is worthy of its warmth. It simply radiates, because that is its nature. And yet that light is not sentimental. It is wise. It knows when to be soft and when to burn. For true love, Ibn Arabi said, must have both mercy and majesty. Jamal and Jalal. Without mercy, love becomes cruelty. Without majesty, it becomes weakness. The perfected heart holds both. Gentle like the moon, powerful like the storm. Such a heart does not react to the world. It responds with presence. It forgives without forgetting, gives without losing, and loves without needing. Because it no longer seeks anything from creation. It has found the Creator within. As the seeker's journey nears completion, they realize that the perfect heart is not something to build, but something to uncover. It was always there beneath the dust of desire. Every act of prayer, every trial, every heartbreak was polishing it back to its original state, a mirror of the divine names. When Ibn Arabi said, "My heart has become capable of every form," he was not boasting. He was describing what happens when the human heart becomes fully surrendered to Allah's will. It becomes a reflection of Ar-Rahman, the All-Merciful. It becomes a living verse of the Quran. Through such a heart, Allah looks upon His creation with compassion. Through such a heart, humanity finds hope. The seeker becomes a doorway. Through them, divine energy flows into the world like fresh water through dry land. And this is the hidden meaning behind al-Insan, al-Kamil, the perfect human. It is not perfection in deeds, but perfection in reflection. The perfect human reflects all of Allah's attributes, not partially, but completely. They are firm, yet forgiving, humble, yet radiant, empty of self, yet full of divine presence. In their presence, people feel peace without understanding why. Their eyes become oceans of compassion, their words become healing, their silence becomes remembrance. They do not teach through speech alone, but through being, through the fragrance of their state. This is what Ibn Arabi meant when he said, "He who knows himself knows his Lord." When you truly know the heart Allah placed within you, you discover that you were never separate. You were always a mirror of His light, dreaming of being a fragment, until love woke you up as the whole. The journey ends not with enlightenment, but with tenderness. The seeker no longer says, "I have reached," but rather, "I have returned." Returned to simplicity, to humility, to love that has no opposite. The heart that once chased the divine in books and rituals now finds Him in every breath, every face, every silence. It walks gently through the world, blessing all it touches. It no longer prays to see Allah, it sees Allah praying through it. And in that realization, the distinction between lover and beloved dissolves completely. There is only one heart, the heart of existence itself, beating through every being, whispering the same secret that Ibn Arabi discovered centuries ago. When the heart becomes vast enough for all, it becomes the throne of the divine. There comes a moment in the seeker's journey when the path itself disappears. The prayers, the rituals, the longing, all dissolve into a silence so complete that even the idea of God fades into something vaster, something that cannot be named. This is the station Ibn Arabi called Fana fi Allah, the annihilation of the self in the divine. It is not death, but awakening, the moment when the drop remembers it has always been the ocean. For lifetimes, the seeker believed in duality, that there is I here and Allah there. Every prayer was a bridge between two shores. But as the journey deepens, the seeker begins to realize there are no two shores, no two beings, only one boundless existence expressing itself through infinite forms. The voice that calls, the one who hears, and the echo that returns, all are the same vibration. Ibn Arabi said, "He who knows himself knows his Lord." But this knowledge is not intellectual. It is an inner explosion. When it happens, everything the ego believed to be me is burned away, and what remains is pure awareness, radiant, eternal, infinite, the consciousness of Allah reflecting through the mirror of creation. In that state, the seeker looks at the world and no longer sees objects, people, or events. He sees energy, divine energy, flowing, shaping, destroying, rebirthing. The tree is not just a tree, it is Allah growing. The river is not just water, it is Allah flowing. The human being is not just flesh and thought, it is Allah remembering Himself through experience. Everything becomes alive, not in a metaphorical way, but literally alive with the pulse of divinity. Ibn Arabi called this Wahdat al-Wujud, the unity of being, not to claim that creation is God, but that there is no existence apart from Him. What we call you and me are just waves on the surface of His endless ocean. The wave rises, dances, crashes, and disappears, but the water remains. When the seeker truly realizes this, fear vanishes, for there is nothing left to lose. Death becomes a change of form, not an end. Pain becomes a teacher, not an enemy. Every breath becomes a remembrance, and every silence becomes prayer. Life stops being something to survive and becomes something sacred to witness. Allah unfolding through time. But this realization is not easy to contain. When Ibn Arabi spoke of Wahdat al-Wujud, many misunderstood him. They accused him of heresy, of claiming to be divine. Yet he never said, "I am Allah." He said, "There is no I." He said that the true Abd servant is the one who disappears so completely in servitude that nothing remains but the one who is served. The ego wants to become divine, but the soul longs to dissolve in divinity. This is the paradox of Sufism. The seeker must vanish to truly exist, and when that vanishing happens, it is not darkness that follows, but a light so overwhelming that it cannot be described. Ibn Arabi said that the divine reveals himself through his creation, the way the sun reveals itself through rays of light. The ray is not separate from the sun. It is the sun in another form, yet the ray cannot say, "I am the sun," for it has no existence apart from it. In the same way, you and I are divine rays, momentary, yet eternal in essence. When this truth dawns, the seeker no longer searches for God as something distant or foreign. He begins to live in a constant state of remembrance, dhikr, not by repeating words, but by being aware that every moment, even the most ordinary, is Allah speaking in a different language. The laughter of a child, the grief of loss, the taste of bread, the silence before dawn, all are revelations. The seeker realizes that worship was never meant to be confined to prayer mats and mosques. Life itself is the mosque, existence the Quran, and love the prayer that never ends. Ibn Arabi wrote that the entire cosmos is a mirror in which Allah contemplates His own beauty. This is the hidden meaning of creation. Allah desired to be known, so He made Himself visible through you. You are not separate from Him. You are His seeing of Himself through the lens of your experience. And yet, this realization brings not pride, but humility. The one who has truly tasted unity does not proclaim it. He walks softly, speaks little, and loves deeply. For how can you harm, insult, or hate another when you see the face of Allah shining through them? How can you be arrogant when you know the same light animates every creature? Ibn Arabi said that the highest knowledge is to see the one in the many, and the many in the one. This vision transforms the seeker's entire being. Compassion becomes instinctive, forgiveness becomes natural, gratitude becomes breath, even suffering becomes sacred, for it is through contrast that the divine reveals new faces of itself. But Ibn Arabi went further still. He said that even the idea of union must be transcended, because union implies two, one who unites and one who is united with. In truth, there were never two to begin with. The seeker realizes that what he thought was a journey toward God was actually God journeying toward himself through the seeker's eyes. The lover, the beloved, and the love between them, all are one. When the mind tries to grasp this, it fails, for this knowledge is not of the intellect. It belongs to the heart. It is tasted, not taught. It is a state of being, not a concept. In this state, words lose their meaning. The seeker stops speaking of Allah as he or I, because pronouns break the unity. What remains is silence, and in that silence, the entire universe hums with a single sound. Hu, he, who is. This silence is not emptiness. It is fullness beyond measure. It is peace beyond peace. Joy beyond joy. A stillness that vibrates with infinite life. The seeker, now dissolved in that ocean, lives among people but no longer belongs to the world. He becomes a servant, not out of obligation, but out of love. His every act becomes worship, not because he intends it, but because his being has become worship itself. He speaks only when Allah speaks through him. He loves because Allah loves through him. He gives because Allah gives through him. There is no separation left, only flow, only harmony, only divine expression. He becomes a mirror so polished that nothing remains of himself, only the reflection of the One. And yet, the beauty of this state is its simplicity. The realized one does not float above humanity like a mystic in trance. He returns to the marketplace, to his family, to his work, but he returns as light. He eats, he laughs, he feels sadness, but all as expressions of divine play. He knows that Allah is not only found in the mosque, but in the dust, the rain, the laughter of strangers. He lives among people as one of them, yet his heart beats in eternity. When others see him, they feel peace without knowing why, because they are seeing themselves in his eyes. He reminds them of what they truly are. This is the secret Ibn Arabi left for us, that the end of the seeker's path is not escape from the world, but transformation within it. To realize that Allah was never distant, that you were never separate, that every breath you take is his breath moving through you. This realization turns life itself into prayer, silence into remembrance, and love into the ultimate truth. In the end, there is no seeker, no seeking, and no goal. There is only Allah witnessing, creating, loving, through countless hearts, countless forms, countless lives. And when your heart finally understands this, you smile, not with pride, but with peace, because the secret that Ibn Arabi discovered centuries ago becomes the secret you carry within your own chest. Asterisk. You were never walking toward Allah. You were walking as Him all along. And now, as the echoes of Ibn Arabi's words fade into your heart, remember this: you were never searching for Allah in the sky or in the sacred walls of a mosque. You were searching for Him in the quiet space within you, the energy that breathes you, the light that moves through your veins. It was never separate from the divine. You have always been a verse in His infinite poem, a reflection in His endless ocean. The mind wants to understand it. The ego wants to possess it. But the soul only wants to remember it. Because deep down, you already know. Every heartbeat, every breath, every tear you've shed in longing was Allah calling Himself back home through you. So walk gently now. Speak softly. Look at every face and see the one who is seeing through yours. You are not a drop lost in the ocean. You are the ocean pretending to be a drop. You are not apart from Allah's energy. You are that energy wrapped in human form. Let that truth humble you. Let it set you free, because the greatest discovery of all is not finding Allah outside of you. It's awakening to the miracle that He was never gone. He was always you. He who knows himself knows his Lord. Ibn Arabi,